Yeah. So, hello, everybody. Welcome and thanks for joining us once again. I am just as Nancy, and I have Marv here with me. Um, Today, we are going to talk about the subject of parents asking for help, knowing when to ask for help, and where to ask for help. Why is it so difficult for some of us to ask for help? I'll just give a quick background. I was once with my kids when I was doing my master's. I'll always bring my kids after school. I'll bring them after the kindergarten, actually, doing kindergarten. Then I'll pick them up, bring them to a playground, and make sure that they play so that as soon as I get home, as soon as I feed them and give them a shower, they would just fall asleep because they're exhausted. Once I was in this playground playing, and I was a young mother, about maybe she's 21, 22, and she needed something. I could see that she was distraught. She needed something. And it was so difficult for this young lady to just walk up to me. And when she came up to me, she started apologizing. She's so sorry, but can she borrow a wipe or tissue from me? And somehow when she was packing the things to bring her younger kids, her child was like 1 year or 18 months, she forgot wipes from her. And you could see, white people, when they're embarrassed, you can see them turning red already. And I could see that. And I wondered to myself, we are all mothers. I mean, I have forgotten tissues before. I've forgotten wipes before. Why do parents feel so overwhelmed when they need to ask help? Or why do they feel shy or ashamed when we need to ask help? As we know, parenting doesn't come with a manual. So we are here on the Parenting Forum on Amamansi Network to talk about parenting issues. We are no experts, but we share our ideas, and we ask you to also join us in the comment section with what you know, your questions, your ideas, opinions, and what have you. So, Marv, welcome and Happy New Year once again.
Thank you very much, Nancy. Happy New Year to you too.
Happy New Year to you. Many happy returns. Marv, let's just dive right in. Have you ever been in a situation like this young lady I just spoke about, and that you felt like embarrassed, shy to ask for help?
Yeah, I've been in that situation several times that I need help. But it's got to do with the culture, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The culture.
Well, I think so. I think women, we are kind of a bit hard on ourselves when it comes to, asking for help.
Yeah, back home it's not so difficult, but here everyone is expected to have what they need.
Mm-hmm.
The fact, the race, the culture, and everything, you don't want to seem needy. You
Mm-hmm.
don't adequate. You don't want to be judged. That's the main thing. So, and you do need the help as well. So, and also the environment that you are in at that particular time, are the people welcoming enough? So for me, I don't find it difficult to ask for help. No. But there's been situations where you see people and you always get, most people expect people to offer it. Yeah, and they start acting up in a way and all that. But here, when you start acting up, people would like you to ask. So the habit of learning to ask for help is very important. And when you ask, you'll be surprised. I don't know why
Yeah.
don't want to, but for me, I don't have that problem. But I have observed it, and it has so many reasons. The person's experience, past experience, the culture, and everything do add to why some people don't want to. Yeah.
Well, especially in our communities, when I talk about our community, that is Africans in the diaspora as
Yeah.
well. Do you think that we are too hard on ourselves? Why do we associate asking for help with failure or weakness?
Yeah. The fact that we are here, one, we don't want to be seen as begging. At the back of your mind, you don't want to look as if you're not earning enough you can provide for yourself. So that is at the back of one's mind when looking, they need something. Also, there's the deep one, which is when seeking for help, you should have certain your status, depending on the kind of help that you want.
Mm-hmm.
contributes a lot to your ability to feel comfortable to ask for help, because you might not, the person might not have the right documentation. So that is the preventative factor where the person is afraid and anxious and very careful to seek help, because they don't want to open a can of worms, and it's the background, where they live, the people they associate themselves with. Someone might be living with someone else, and the tracking and tracing idea about that, especially people in the diaspora, do not really feel comfortable asking for help because of maybe their status or something that's related to their current situation. Yeah.
Okay. So when we are looking at talking specifically about our children,
Yeah.
what are some, let's say, signs that we have to look for and know, okay, I need this help, or my child needs help? Because, we are the biggest advocates for our children. They cannot advocate for themselves. So what are some signs in their different stages that they find themselves that we can say, okay, looking at this situation, my child needs help?
Well, at every stage in your child's life, you should observe carefully. We've spoken previously about relating to your child, knowing your child, and all these things. So one of the most important things, as you know, for those in the diaspora, is when you give birth to a child, there are certain things that a child is expected to do. So especially with the developmental stages. Have I gone off? Okay. With the developmental stages of a child. So the number one thing is, if your child is not meeting these criterias, you should seek help. That's the first one. You need to seek help. Culturally, especially those from back home, Ghana, they will tell you, oh, my child didn't talk on time at this age and everything is okay and all that. No, it's not all the time. So that's why they've brought the guidance for us. So you follow the guidance. If you see something wrong with your toddler, your baby, immediately go to the hospital, medical practitioner, whatever you need, and seek help. And then when they are in school, to anything that is reported to you, you need to follow up. And you also observing your child. If something is going wrong, you ask questions about that as well. And then it gets to the adults. So every stage, anything that you think is going wrong with your child, you first have to communicate with your child. Try to understand the child. If the child cannot explain to you, you can't understand the child. It means you're both lost as to what's going on. And that's when you need help.
Right. Yeah. And my thing is, why do you think some of us, especially when we come to talking about when they are in school or when they're in kindergarten, why do you think that some of us are wary when somebody comments about something being wrong with our children? Or why do you also think in the other way, why are we are a bit resistant when we get feedback sometimes concerning our children? I'm saying this because there is this unspoken thing among, I can say here in Germany, that we think that our children are overly evaluated by teachers, by schools, by doctors, because they do not understand us. Especially the male African child is always seen as being a bit too active, too hyper, and so on. So many mothers are resistant when they are giving this feedback about their child. Where does this come from?
There's some. It's a very tricky question, and I have a personal experience, and I can tell you, for me, I was open. When the situation was presented to me, I was like, I've never seen this before. I don't understand it. So I went reading and finding out about what's going on. So I was very open. Okay, so the professionals were the ones I just gave it over. I was signing the papers for everything to be done, and I was open about it. So it was all the way. Like the professionals took everything all the way. They would ask you, but I was somebody who was naive about the actual thing that was happening to my child. So at the end of the day, now, if you ask me, I'll tell you, I should have been a bit slow into as giving them access. Okay. So that is where it's tricky, especially us from back home, getting the right advice, because we have a different notion. There's no in between with us. Because for us, we don't have the knowledge. And then we are dealing with people too that have the knowledge. And there's also the gray area. You see, there's also the gray area. So it's you have to take time and see this. For me, my son was diagnosed with being on the spectrum, okay, and it's mild. But because I was so open, they put him in a special school, and he's more capable than the school that he's in. And now I want him out, and it's become a struggle. So that's where I beat myself down that most parents have their children in mainstream schools who need help, but because of this situation, they don't want to accept that they have a problem. So that there's some problem there, which I can't pinpoint as to why that problem is there, unless you be more know what the problem is and you can add more.
Yeah. Okay. Hello, Life Nuggets, and hello, Ellen, on Life Journey with Ellen. Thank you for joining us. We are discussing asking for help and why parents are afraid to ask for help. We are being specific. We are talking about Africans in the diaspora. We're not talking about back home. Going on to that, it's like it's a two-edged sword for most parents. I work in a school where it's inclusive, which means even though it's a regular school, we do allow kids who are on the spectrum or who have any kind of disability to join us. It doesn't matter. It's very accessible for all kinds of kids who have Tourette's, which I never even knew what Tourette's is. And so on. And then what I have seen with our children is once you give too much access to the right people or the experts, they do tend to take their job very seriously and do tend to think they have more control over your child than you do.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if you do not, then you have it's an uphill climb where you have to really suffer with taking care of your child by yourself, especially when it comes to their needs in the school and so on, I do believe, and yeah, that is my conviction, that yes, sometimes the diagnosis for our African kids are a bit too harsh and too quick. And yes, I understand why our sisters advise as the children develop differently. Yeah. Moving on a bit further from that. So do you think it's safe when we ask our family members when something is wrong, or when you have a feeling you should just go straight to the experts when you feel something is wrong?
For those of us in the diaspora, the advice is free giving. Oh, it's free for all.
Okay.
There's so many. Okay, but you know your child. You know what you want for your child. You know your family background. You know how behaviors. It's a natural thing. Oh, in our family, we do this, we go like this, we talk like this, we do that. And you've done those observations and you realize, okay. But for me, if you ask me, because of the rules of this country, safeguarding yourself and for future reference of things happening, it's better to approach the professionals. But the trick is the way you approach them. and how you approach them. So if you ask me, our background, the knowledge is there, the information is there, it's free, you will get it so easily. So that's not a problem. But I don't advise giving them power over to control your child. You should do it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Someone has posted something,
Yeah, Life Nugget says that, oh, that's a nice one to have school inclusive, as you said. This helps everyone integrate and learn to relate to children with different abilities. Yes, it does. As a matter of fact, one of my colleagues is in a wheelchair, which I think is something that is very, very different for me. Because coming from Ghana, we don't see people who have physical disabilities in active roles, whether it's in school or in everyday business, life. So I find that, and of course we have other kids there as well. But the thing is, for classes where they have these children, there's more than one teacher there because you need more than one person. You need a regular person who is there doing their normal duties, and then you need somebody who in between, when a child is like frustrated or what everything, and like something happens, they can take that child out and deal with the child, calm the child down, and then return at a different time. So it requires a lot of resources, if I can say, to be able to run an inclusive school, Yeah. On Life's Journey with Ellen, I said, this is my background as an occupational therapist. Some mothers hesitate to ask for the help because of the stigma that will be attracted if others know. That is very true. But one thing we need to know is that it has to be collaborative. It has to be a collaborative relationship between the caregiver and the professional. That is true because there is this stigma also because so many of us do not understand what our children are going through because we don't even have names for certain things in our culture. For instance, my eldest daughter she has dyslexia, and I had no idea what it was. But when she was in the second grade, I noticed that there's something wrong because I'm a very, very, very active reader. And I had been teaching both her and her sister, who is 2 years younger, how to read. And when she was in the second grade and she was 7 and her sister was 5, her sister was reading a second grade level, and the 5-year-old was reading a second grade level, and the 7-year-old was reading below first grade level. And I was like, something is wrong. In the beginning, it was very, very, very difficult for me to tell anybody about it because I have, from my Ghanaian background, I have associated the inability to read to be like lazy, or I don't want to use the word dumb, but that is how it was for me. Like, what kind of, I was thinking, oh my God, what's happening? Like, because I remember my biggest fear was the trauma that I myself had put in other people through, because when I was a child and I was in school, when a teacher asked somebody to read out loud and that person could not read, we all laughed. It wasn't like me per se, we all laughed. And I knew that I was not part of it because I can read, and I was like scared that, oh my God, my child was going to go through this hardship. And for me, it was, and I knew that to tell some other person, they'll be like, it's either, you know how judgmental some women can be. Oh, you're always on social media. That's why you're not having time for your child to read and all of these things. So it was very difficult for me, to be able to even talk about that my child has this problem. But I am very happy that at some point, I initiated an evaluation, and I was like, I talked to the school psychiatrist. I need her to be evaluated when she was she's right now in the 8th grade anyway. And I am very glad that I went for it because, of course, they gave her an IQ test and all of these things. And now she's given more time for work in class, and the frustration that she would have gone through is not there any longer. So it's true, it has to be collaborative, and sometimes we have to also change our own perception, because for mine, it was me. I was my biggest enemy because asking for it was very hard for me. I felt like it was a failure on my part to teach not being able to teach my daughter how to read.
I also had those from us of us from the diaspora. The stigma is a big thing in because of the way we understand children not being able to do something. Even when you were, I remember, as you said, you are in school and the child is not able to read. It's a big thing. You know, the child is teased. And so as adults, when your child at that young age starts showing signs, you feel, for me, autism was something I had no clue. I didn't understand what it was. A child being on the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen kids, and our understanding if a child is in a, we think that it's only those in the wheelchair, those
Mm-hmm.
hold around and everything are those who have a disability or something. Disability is a curse word
Mm-hmm.
in the culture.
Yeah,
As something is wrong with your child, is either you've done something and you've been punished,
exactly. Mm-hmm.
or you've whatever. It's being associated with evil and all these things. But come to understand it and reference it and see more people on this thing that it is a developmental delay or a child not being developed in the womb properly. So coming out, they have to develop outside the womb and they are lacking these things. And they might grow out of it or not grow out of it. And they might need help in doing certain things. If you understand them in this way and you see other people who have these things going on with them and have been able to live a successful life, then you would get to realize, no, I need to know more about this. I need to learn more about it to understand what's going on. Because and when for me, I dived into the on the internet, and the information that was coming out is depressing. I have said it somewhere before that when your child is diagnosed on the spectrum, because it's so broad, it's a grieving stage for parents. Any parent, child, and something is wrong with the child. It's something that seems not right. It's a grieving stage. You come home and you realize your child cannot act like what your other child can do, and then you have to be helping them, and your mind goes wild. How
Mm-hmm.
is this going to last? How is he going to cope? And if it's a loss, you have to allow yourself to go through the grieving stage of all these things and come to the acceptance that, look, until you accept and understand what you're dealing with, you cannot move forward. You cannot ask for help because you are ashamed. You're
Mm-hmm.
overwhelmed with so many things according to what your culture says about whatever that's going on. So you need to heal and accept and then move forward. Else you will be locked up with your child in the house.
I completely agree that it's a grieving stage because you have to somehow bury this idea you had about the child that you're going to have. So, in a way, you have to let that idea go, and letting that idea go is like a loss because I had an idea of how my kids were going to be like. I was never going to shout at them. They were going to be perfect, we were going to, just have fun times, reading all the time, and they were always going to say yes and do everything that I tell them to be. And before I was going to be the best mom ever, and everything was going to be so. Yes, you do have to bury that idea, and burying that idea is a loss, and you have to grieve for the loss of the idea or
Yeah.
the fantasy that you have in your head, and then learn to cope with the situation. And if the situation needs it, it requires that you get help. You do get help. There was one comment here from live journey on live journey with Ellen, and I don't know if you can read it for us. I can't see it any longer.
It's lost. I'm not on Facebook. I think it goes, it's been frozen.
Yeah, it says that asking for help is also very broad. For me, if the help can help me manage, I will gladly go for it. For example, getting a private tutor to help with mathematics. Yes. I mean, yeah, of course, if it can help you, that is what we should always do. That is the normal thing that we should always do. That's the easiest thing we should always do. But sometimes the easiest and the simplest things are the most difficult for some of us to do. Now, I would like for us to talk about the different stages in our kids' life and some of the signs that we can look out for. So, like from 0 to 3, what are some signs that you think parents should look out for between 0 and 3 years? that can inform them that, okay, maybe my child needs help.
Yeah, I think from 0 to 3 months, your
Or to
child,
3 years. Let's
3 years.
make it a bit broader. Yeah.
So from 0 to 3 months, I'm just trying to go back,
Mm-hmm.
as your child should be able to, you put the child out, the child should be able to turn, the child should be able to raise their head,
Mm-hmm.
they can play and move around and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So there are stages that you have to put the child on the floor, because normally the child has to move and maneuver, you know,
Mm-hmm.
sit with the child on the floor. And all these things, you observe the child. Those toys that they buy, that the child lies down and looks up, it
Mm-hmm.
also eye coordination, how the child is able to turn easily, to show you that the body functions are correct. You should be also going to check these things. Anything you see, go to the GP, ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And I know in Europe, there's so many pamphlets, there are so many leaflets.
Mm-hmm.
Read them. So many directions that they can ask you to go. But the tricky part is the way we ask questions. I think we will come to that later.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then the child should be able to wave, say hello, when copy you,
Mm-hmm.
and all those things, like copy you when you say hi. They should be able to turn when they hear a sound. They should be, and when you go to the GPs and they are checking your child, observe them, ask them questions. Don't be shy to ask them questions. They are there to support you. So the least thing that you don't understand, I was new, I have only one child, but I like to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
So do ask questions, find out, and then they will give you all the answers you need. And also, there are books to read. It doesn't hurt reading these books. You should not having high expectations, but just to give you guidelines as to what to observe your child. As I said, my son stopped saying uh, bye. He was talking, and then suddenly he stopped. He was everything. He worked at 10 months, so active. He did so many things, but suddenly he stopped. So, with children on the spectrum, it's not like when a child is born, when you see something wrong. It's down
Mm-hmm.
the line. So you might think everything is okay, and then suddenly something crops up. I've spoken to many parents who said, "Oh, after 2 years, I started seeing the signs that my child has stopped doing this and doing that, not looking at me. The first sign is not looking at you when you talk.
Mm-hmm.
Not interested in wanting to do stuff with you. The normal thing is a child pulling stuff, wanting to engage. If the child is not interested, those are the signs. Between 1 and 3, every toddler have their own things that they do, especially looking at you. They are curious. If they are not doing that, it's a sign for you to investigate what's going on.
Okay, so we've talked about that, and now I wanted us to talk about the one of the biggest monsters for most parents living here is children who are going through puberty. When we talk about children going through puberty, that is between the ages of let's say 11 or even earlier, because nowadays puberty starts a bit earlier for some children. So some of the biggest things that parents face when their children go through puberty here in Germany is our kids start to behave very differently from the sweet angels that we know them to be when they were between the ages of, let's say, 1 and 5 or 1 and 8. They stop being these sweet angels, and then now you have to deal with these children, and we don't have as much influence on them as we used to, because now they are coming into their own, they are finding themselves as a person, and they are beginning to have their own ideas of doing things and their own ways of doing things. Because previously, we decided the clothes they wear, we dressed them up, we decide the shoes they wear and everything. And then as they get into puberty, all of a sudden they want to have their own identity. They decide the style of clothes they want to wear, the way they want to wear their hair, and so on. And as we know, that leads to a lot of conflict between parents and children here in the diaspora. I think it's the same everywhere. How should parents approach this, especially this monster called puberty here?
I think we've dealt with that. That's communication, you know.
Yeah.
It's the communication should be very, very, very open. And the boundaries should have been set so the child knows how far they can push their boundaries. And the communication, one happen is talking to the kids. The phrases that we use in our conversation should not be too authoritative, but it should be in a form of communication. I noticed you are more interested in nail polishes. Why is that? You know, I noticed to create, not say I don't want you to put nail polishes. What? Because that they have created, as you said, they are creating their own image. They understand things, so you have to come down to their level to see why they are being attracted to these things. I don't have a teenage child, so I can't say I have experienced it, but I have related with, and it's difficult. And all I can say is the communication should be much, much more frequent.
Okay. When dealing with this, all of these different stuff, when should parents, do you think, or in which cases is it okay for parents to make teachers aware or school aware if their child is going through some type of difficulty? Because I've had experience, my daughter was going through her issues in the second grade. She was just labeled as lazy by her teacher. Yeah, her teacher said, no, she's a very brilliant child. She's just lazy and she's always daydreaming and things like that, you know? And it has me, I'm a bit worried. When should you involve the school, or should you even involve your child's school in the first place?
You should be there. My mom used to, as soon as we enter school, my mom would look for a teacher and say, "This is my child, look after this." So anything that she does, make sure I hear it. You know, so I was always cautious about these things. But you know, the thing is, how before going to see a school about something, you need to sit down and assess, have that discussion with your child, communicate with your child, and find out what is actually going on before you make that step. And when you go, your phrases, you don't go diagnosing your child to the school.
Exactly.
Don't go and diagnose your child. My child is a bully. My child is, like you said, lazy. My child doesn't know. You have to say phrases like, I've noticed my child it's not motivated to do anything. That's a very broad thing. You are looking for help. You are not posing yourself as if you know everything. I've noticed my child doesn't want to play along with his siblings. He's not relating to them properly. That is not like him. And I don't know what's going on. Can you advise me on stuff? And then they will ask you questions. You should be calculated, because you don't want what the words you use would be permanently marked in that. Remember, they write them down.
Yep.
They write those things down, and it will go the long way. So before you approach, find the appropriate to use, assess the situations properly, and your communication should be carefully worded. not diagnosing your child, my child is a bully, my child is lazy. That is what they are going to relay back to you. Because if you're not lucky and you find somebody who wants to really dig down
Mm-hmm.
and investigate what is actually going on, it's not going to help. And the fact that you have already diagnosed your child, it doesn't push them to take the child through the right places that they need to go. So just make it open so that they would find the right place. They will allow your child to to have therapy or whatever thing that is provided in the school. So let your child go through the process for you to identify actually what is going on. So your wording in your questioning should be assessed carefully. Maybe you discuss with somebody that you can trust. They can guide you as to how to word your questions before you approach the school. And then when they do, that's better. That's what I think.
Yeah. Okay. So Life Nugget says that there's a better way to put the request and protect your child as well. I believe there is because, like Marv said, if you're not careful, I have a friend who told me that she told the teacher, "Oh, I noticed that my child has." She mentioned something. I've forgotten whether it was in math or in German. And before that, her child was getting like A's and B's. And after she mentioned that, the child came home only with C's. It was like the teacher was now grading the child a bit more
Yeah,
uh, stern, like severe than
yeah,
before, And as you know, in Germany, secondary school starts from grade 5, and that is when we divide the kids. And she was very worried that her child was not going to get the mainstream, that's the regular
yeah,
12-year education, and was just going to be assigned to just a 9-year education also. And she was really, really worried. So it is true. It's true. You have to find a better way to talk about your child, because that matters a lot.
yeah.
Okay, so moving on, especially going back to dealing with like teens, even though you said you don't have teens, how or when should we bring like mental health experts into the picture?
When you have no idea of what you're dealing with, if you ask, if you have no idea as to what you're dealing with, you need to go through the whole process. They wouldn't take your child to mental health straight away. They will have to go through therapy. They will go through the different stages and be patient and allow the process. As I said earlier, the way you introduce the situation of your child will determine how long they will take you. So you need to carefully plan and calculate. And these things take a long time, and it's a whole job on its own, following up
Yep.
with the. And also, sometimes they observe the attitude of the parent as well. As soon as your issue goes out of the home and enters the school, whether you like it or not, the whole observation comes to the whole family. In some situations, the whole family life is investigated. And that is one of the reasons why we are reluctant, most of us from the diaspora, we don't want to go there because the skeletons in the cobwebs cannot.
It's true because if one child has an issue, like in my daughter's case, when she was being evaluated for
Yeah,
what is the reason why she was not performing in school, our whole family was investigated. They talked to me separately, talked to the dad separately, talked to her sister separately, and then they talked to us as a group to observe the dynamics, how our kids relate to us in a family setting as well. And then they had to put her through a whole series of tests, and it's tedious. Once a child is evaluated, it took us, I would say, 2-3 years of therapy for her to find her own way or a different way of learning to read as opposed to regular. I don't want to say regular or other kids, you
yeah,
know. And right now she's in the 8th grade. She's doing so well, and I am glad that I advocated that for her. But I have to be honest, I was scared during this process because I was afraid Oh my God. I don't really have any skeletons. Like I've said here before, I am practicing gentle parenting. Sometimes it works well, sometimes it doesn't work so well. And I was like, okay, what if my child tells her sometimes mommy gets angry and she yells or at something? How would that be seen? Will I be seen as a bad person or a good person or whatever, you know? So, of course, I was scared, you know, because I was thinking something would be like, it's my fault,
Yeah.
you know? And then my husband is going to be like, I told you to leave it alone. But as a mother, you know, it's not so easy for us to just leave stuff
Yeah.
alone, you know? So I was thinking about all of that. Yeah. So, like you said, it's not so easy for most of us to just bring experts in, because once you deal with the school is obligated
Yeah.
to record that and to report it to the right people. And we know that here they do take their job very, very seriously, because if something happens down the line, nobody wants to be blamed for dropping the ball. So there's going to be a series of follow up and follow up and follow. And if you don't have the stamina, you might, you know, be very, very frustrated, you know, because
Yeah.
it's a long thing. Okay. Now, moving on to asking for help, there's so many ways. We've talked about mental health, school, and all of that. Asking for help around the house. At what age should parents, or at what stage should parents ask for help around the house from their kids as well?
It should start as early as possible. I send my son to go and get me stuff. Get me this. Get me this. I know he will struggle, but yeah, sometimes I'll go and hold his hand to pick it up for me. And then I thank you. It's work. It's not easy. Your mind should be psyched as to what's the end game
Mm-hmm.
of what you want to achieve for the child. Else, and now at his age, 8 years, and I go to, even though he's on the spectrum, and I say, carry this for me, hold this for me. He would hold it for me. He opens doors for people.
Nice.
When his mates at school, he helps them because he's been taught to help people. So it must start at a very young age. In my mind, because it takes a long time for them to learn things, why not start as soon as possible? And for kids, the earlier you start something, the earlier it becomes a norm to you, even as adults. Things that you know to do as a child, you don't even think about it, you do it. Than things that you are learning as an adult, you have to be remembered, you have to be reminded, you have to be cautioned, they have to, and the person will say, I've told you over, you're not used to it. So they will have to always remind you of it. But if it's part of you as growing up, it comes so easily. So, and it teaches them to know that you are superwoman,
Mm-hmm.
That you will need help in some time when you're doing something, and you'll be surprised, you'll be doing something, can I help? When they offer, let them do it. When they ask, let them do it. Sometimes we just don't want to talk too much. We say, oh, it's okay, because you just want quickly and done with.
Yeah. Sometimes it's better to go. I feel like, oh my God, let me go and do it myself, because this is not going to work, because they will
Yeah,
come back and tell you, oh, I can't find it, and
yeah,
it's right. And then when I go and pick it, they're like, how did you do that? When I
yeah.
entered it was not there, So sometimes to make my own life easy, I just go in and
No,
do it myself.
yeah, I think because my situation is different. This afternoon, I was asking my son to go and get me a bottle of water from the bedroom, and there were about 3 bottles of water. I had showed him where the other one was. He kept bringing the wrong ones until he found the right one. I said, thank you very much for finding it. And he was laughing. He knew what I wanted. I didn't want to go. So he was bringing me the wrong ones. He thought I would get up. I said, no.
And go and do it yourself. Yeah.
He does it and he laughs.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like, oh my God, you're doing it so that you do it
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah,
Yeah.
of
And
course.
and we have this saying that sometimes if you send somebody,
Mm.
you rest your knees, but
But, but it's also teaching them to ask for help. You are teaching them that it's not everything that you have to do on your own. You are building up the attitude that it's okay to ask for help because they see you as a superwoman. Mom provides everything. Why does he need us to do something? You know, and sometimes it shouldn't be unnecessary. You should be calculated on the kind of help you need them to do. Oh, I need these letters sorted. Can you please arrange them as to where it's coming from and everything? You're teaching them at the same time. You're learning at the same time. So, yeah, I think as soon as they are able to understand what you are asking them to do, teach them on how to ask for help. I think, yeah.
I completely agree with you because I'm reading one book that says how to raise successful children. And in the book, she talks about letting kids go grocery shopping, you know. And she's a grandmother who took her grandkids, and she was parked in the parking lot, and she asked the kids to go. And when the kids came back, they were feeling so proud of themselves, you know, and feeling so good about being able to do stuff on their own. And in as much as it helps them to be confident, it also helps them to know that parents do need help sometimes. You know, like you said, we are not super humans. We are also regular like everybody else. And yeah, time and time again, everybody needs help. How do you teach children to self-evaluate, to know, okay, I need help? And when they need help, to leave that door open, that when they need help, they can always come to us and ask us for help.
I think you have to emulate to them. So there are times that I play with my son and I'm like, oh, my leg is stuck. Come and help me. Come and put my socks on for me, please. My arm is hurting. Ouch, ouch. Then I act it out because of the condition of my child. So he has to force and then put the socks on my leg, you know, showing him that because I'm in pain, I can't do that. So it's registering that when I can't do it by myself, I need help. And then with friends, when there's a party, you arrange, like when there's something going on in the house, involve them. And those ones that you say, oh, I can't go and buy this. Maybe we should call dad to help us. When he's coming, he should get this for us. So you communicate that with them to let them know that it's not always that they will have to stop and go and get this, whatever they need. If somebody is willing, ask. If the person says no, it's fine. If they can help, thank you very much for helping. So you have to emulate it to them.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you. I've had so much, I've learned so much here about asking for help, especially when you meet things that you have no idea about. Like you said, you had no idea what the spectrum is about. I also have no idea because I've not lived that experience. I remember the first time, it was summer, I walked past a student and I saw on her thighs that she had these tiny marks all over her thighs. And I said to myself, what is this? Like, I was wondering, what kind of scar is this? And I could not ask her because I don't want to trigger anything. I came home and I checked. I did a lot of research on the internet and I found out that this is something that, I don't know, maybe we have it in Ghana or in Africa, but I never experienced cutting as a thing that children do. But I've come to know that this is something that children do here in Europe. They do tend to cut themselves for a reason, depending on whether they've been through abuse or some kind of, if there's a death in their family or parents have gone through a divorce. And so I had no idea that maybe people did it in Ghana and they don't, because it's not something to talk about, but it's not something that I ever noticed, you know. And I wonder if you're an African parent and you are met with this, how you're going to be able to deal with it. So I hope that discussing about asking for help and not feeling ashamed to ask for help helps all of us to know that, you know, parenthood doesn't come with a manual. You should always be, it should be okay to ask for help without feeling ashamed or feeling like you're being judged. You know, it's only ignorant people who judge others when they do ask for help. You know, there's nothing wrong with asking for help. So If there are no other comments, I'd like to sign off. Or Marv, if you have any other thing to say, maybe you can add something.
One thing is recently, I was on a parent's forum, and it was a situation got to do with the behavior of my child and the way those involved with him were dealing with it. So I just thought, oh, I need advice as to how to approach these professionals. You know, how to approach professionals is different from approaching your friends.
Mm-hmm.
You have to seem as if you know so much. You have to be cautious because some of them may think you are trying to instruct them on what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked the parents, and one parent said, "There's so much going on the in the NHS. We need. They are so overwhelmed. So you can't come around saying these people are not doing that." And that situation happens a lot, especially to those of us in the diaspora. You ask people questions and they gaslight you. They make you feel as if whatever you are experiencing is not true and that it's not there. So you actually have to be in a certain mindset and be prepared for backlash. Asking for help has a whole thing coming with it. And that's why I think most people avoid it.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to be mentally prepared. You have to know your end game should be your motivation for asking for help. If it's not going to get you anything, you have to reconsider. You have to ensure that you speak to the right people. It's not anybody that you have to be talking about things. Ensure that you meet the right people and discuss it with the right people. And don't give up. Don't ask one person. There are so many avenues. Try them. But as I said, let your questions be properly sentenced, in order not to shoot yourself in the foot, so that you do get the right help you need.
Okay. Yeah, I can see the young one over there. Hello.
It's going to hack my phone, and I'm saying no.
Okay. Well, so thank you very much, Marv. And what you've said is true. Sometimes I feel like parenting forums and mom forums are sometimes the worst places to ask for help sometimes. Because I do find some of them really, really toxic and with responses and things like that, And the thing that I have seen is when you share, because I have had an experience, I'm in several mom groups. I had an experience where I shared my experience.
Yeah.
My experience and how it was. And people either doubt you or they think the way your approach was stupid, or they think your approach was stupid, and they think your approach was substandard. But the point is, if you've not walked in somebody's shoes or lived in somebody's shoes, it's so easy for you as an outsider to say, if it was me, I'll do XYZ. When it comes to bullying, for instance, when my daughter was being bullied in school, I had the approach of, okay, then you have to learn how to self-defense and so on. Because as we know, bullies, they never bully where teachers are or where there are witnesses and so on. Because they're very, they are cowards, And somebody was like, I was like, yeah. So in the end, I had to tell my daughter had to take self-defense classes. And if your child, you verbally abuse my child is ready with a comeback, because they're not just going to, let it go, because bullies are coward. Once they see that there's resistance, they will back off. But once they see there's no resistance, they're going to pick on you over and over again, because what are you going to do? All you're going to do is go tell the teacher. And what's the teacher going to do? Nothing. They're just going to tell the parents. And what are the parents going to do? The parents maybe they'll take some privileges away, and then that's it, So I was like, no, she has to learn self-defense. And people were like, yes, why are you trying to say that your child has to retaliate with hitting? I was like, no, if you say a mean word to her, because here in Germany they like to refer to the color of your skin to be the same thing as a human, they used to use, I don't want to say that. And I was like, well, if you say that, the child has to have the right comeback and so on. And some parents are like, no, you cannot do that. That is wrong and blah, 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 blah. You have to tell your child to go tell the teacher. And then what? Like, then I was like, and then what? Because I'm a teacher myself, there's very limited things that we can do. So they make you feel like either your approach is substandard, you're an idiot. And I do find some parenting forums like, really, really toxic. And then it shuts you off from even asking for help at all, But it should be a safe place where we can, bounce ideas off each other before we bring the experts in.
Yeah.
That is why we are here at the Parenting Forum. We are here to give you the chance for us to have that discussion.
What I have learned, our culture, when things happen, we meet and then we talk about it within the family and all that. But here in the diaspora, like, they go straight to the law.
Mm-hmm.
So one lady who was a Caucasian lady called me aside. She sent me a message. She said, take this issue to the court. She says, get a lawyer and deal with this, and that is the approach. I thought that if I speak to the teachers or like find a way to speak to the teachers, it would be the best way to approach it. But you know what? The thing is, I was saying that they need more time need more explained reports. Okay. So they write more explained reports. And they were telling me that is unachievable. And I said, well, you see the teacher every day. Our kids travel on a bus to come. So if you see the teacher every day, you can communicate with the teacher. Those who come on the bus, we don't see the teacher. So if they are telling us what's happening in the day, it should be more elaborated. And I was telling, the person said, what you're asking is irrelevant, And the lady said, your child shouldn't be in that school anyway. And you want your child out of there. So go and see a lawyer and deal with this. Whilst this lady comes at the background and starts, the NHS is overbooked, overwhelmed, and then she was just trying to be racist. That we are overwhelmed, people come from outside, and then the things they're saying means that you don't qualify for whatever you are asking for. But I called it out. There was a whole ruckus. The whole page had to be closed down. It's not an easy thing I'm talking to you about. The whole page had to be shut down. And then some parents said, we need the page for communication, so they opened it up back. But that was not what the intention was. I was trying to be vulnerable, seeking that other parents might help, but it doesn't. So it's always important to aim for the professional, but before that, be very careful. So sometimes as they are telling you to talk to the teacher would take you to see that you are a very serious parent. You don't take nonsense for your child, and then go ahead to see the headmistress. So you make a fuss about it.
Yeah, you have to make a big fuss about it.
Big fuss about it. But from our culture, we think we start from the ground. No, they think you are scared. So they like to you go to the top and show them that you are not afraid of them. You can sit and communicate with them, and you can come into an understanding with them. And that's what works for them.
Yeah.
So for our approach, is totally wrong.
Yeah, I completely agree, because in the end, the other parent had to tell them, I'm going to sue you if this happens again. I am going to make a police case against you, Yeah. And you have to be a bit, because sometimes you cannot approach it the way we do back home, talking to the parent. Because at the end of the day, what can the parents do to the child here? Apart from taking their phone away, nothing else is going to happen. And when the parents take that child's phone away, the child is going to be even more mad and come to school and, express that on your child.
Yeah.
So the best approach is for you to just go straight to the law, like you said. It's going
Yeah.
to become a case between
Yeah.
you and I, and we are going to deal with it
Yeah.
in the courts. Yeah. Okay. So Marv, I would like to sign off here. Thanks for joining us. Thank you, Life Nuggets. Thank you on Life Journey with Ellen. And thanks to all the other people who joined. We will see you again next week at the same time. Bye for now. Bye.
Bye, Nancy. Take care.